Morning, my Riverbend family. I am your substitute teacher today. I was not on the schedule to teach today. You were going to be privileged to hear Pastor Travis Taylor share with you today, but on Wednesday, his wife rushed him to the emergency room and he was diagnosed with pneumonia. Now, if you know Travis, that is a big deal because Travis has leukemia, and Travis takes a daily chemo regimen to keep that leukemia in remission. And as it turns out, pharmacologically, the drugs that treat the pneumonia fight with the drugs that treat the leukemia. So right now he is struggling to recover from the pneumonia without taking his chemo. And the last report we had from him this morning was he's doing fine, except he can't sleep because when he lays down, he has coughing fits. And he didn't admit to this, his wife is out of town, so he is home parenting his 4 children by himself with pneumonia and no sleep. So if you can remember Pastor Travis Taylor, that would be greatly appreciated. But we decided to cover for Travis today, so I talked to him and I said, did you have any idea what you were going to share with the congregation? And as it turns out, he had this beautiful message. So I said, send me your notes and I will plagiarize you. And so what you're going to get is a Dave version of Pastor Travis Taylor's message. And what Travis had planned for us today was Travis had planned to connect the series that we just finished on family with the series that we are about to undertake for the fall. And the connection between those 2 series is communion. And so for that reason, I brought this. This is the actual dinner bell that my grandparents used and my parents used to ring on the farm and in our home when dinner was ready when I was growing up. In fact, this bell was rung every dinner meal, every evening that I can remember from the time I was an infant to the time I left for college. Every day when dinner was prepared or about to be served, my mother or my grandmother would go out on the porch and ring this bell, which indicated no matter where I was or what I was doing, I was to stop. If I was in the barn or if I was playing with friends or if I was out seeing what kind of trouble I could get in, the ringing of the bell meant come in for dinner. It meant get cleaned up, wash up, clean up, and get ready to sit at the dinner table with your family for dinner. I can only remember a handful of times in my entire youth where we were not together as a family, sometimes including my grandparents, my cousins, and sometimes friends that I would drag to dinner with me at the dinner table. Now, I am suspicious that that is not happening so much anymore. I am suspicious that given the lifestyles of many of you young families, that it is an incredible challenge to wrangle your kids into one place at one time to sit down for one meal. And even if you manage to do that every week, it's no small thing to actually, especially if you have 2 working parents or you're a single parent, and you are raising a family and your children are involved in after-school activities and sports and clubs, and they're in theater and they're in FFA. Is anybody in FFA anymore? Does anybody remember FFA, the Future Farmers of America? There were a lot of those kids when I was growing up, and we made fun of them, but they were probably the smartest kids in the school. But in this day, I'm amazed that families can even sit down for one meal together a day. But when I grew up, that was the habit. The habit was that the family came together for dinner. That every day, no matter what we were doing, we stopped what we were doing so we could be together at the table. We spent the last 4 weeks talking about what it means to be a family, not a biological family, but a spiritual family, a family that is a community, a family that we call the church. And 2,000 years after the church began, we've kind of grown accustomed to the idea that we are a spiritual family, and we forget just how radical and how revolutionary that idea was. You see, the church is the first organization in human history that invited people from every tribe and every tongue, from every background, from every station in life, from every age. Slaves and slave owners, rich and poor, young and old, educated and uneducated, to be a part of a family, to choose your family. And this radical idea of the church said, we are not going to exist as an institution. We are not going to exist as an organization. We are going to exist as brothers and sisters, as moms and dads, and sons and daughters. We are going to be all of the privileges and all of the responsibilities of being a family. And this was such a radical notion that much of the New Testament writings are instructions on how a family should behave, on how the church should be formed, because no one had ever done it before. And it's a healthy reminder for us because this is unusual. This is supposed to be different. We are supposed to be a collection of misfits and outcasts and orphans and widows and widowers and people with no other family. This is to be our family. And doing that is no small thing. And so we spent 4 weeks looking at some advice that the Apostle Paul gave to a young protege of his, a pastor named Timothy. And in 1 Timothy chapter 5, we broke it down, and it's very simply. It says, do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers. Treat older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. And in this simple instruction, the Apostle Paul is reminding us that we not only have the privileges of being a part of a family, we have the responsibilities as moms and dads, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, that we are to see each other, no matter what our background, no matter what our story, no matter where we are from, no matter where we are on our journey of faith, as family. Now, that's a challenging thing. Raising a family is no small thing. Parenting is the greatest challenge that any of us can undertake. And as I was reading through Pastor Travis's notes, he makes a note of how challenging it is. He has 4 young children at home, and he has a full life, and they are an active family. And the challenges of being a healthy family are known to anyone who has tried to do it. If you are a parent here today, you are following the highest calling. I am a grandparent now, and we watch one of our granddaughters just a day and a half out of every week, and it exhausts us. And so parenting is this exhausting undertaking that is 100% the greatest calling that you will have in your life, and it is what we are called to do. As a church, we are called to be a family. But when it's this hard, how do you do it? And I was reading through Pastor Travis's notes, and he was suggesting that one of the ways that we do it is by taking responsibility to be a blessing to each other. You see, he connected it through the communion table, and he said, at the communion, the head of the family is Christ, and he is the head of this family. But as members of the family, we have responsibilities. And so this shifts us toward where we're going to be this fall. We're going to spend our time this fall studying the greatest sermon that was ever preached. It's recorded for us in the Gospel of Matthew, in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. It's named the Sermon on the Mount. It tells us in Matthew chapter 5 that after Jesus had collected his first disciples in Galilee on a mountainside, he gathered them together with a large following of people, and he taught them. Now, we are not going to have time to go through 3 chapters of the book of Matthew this fall. We're just going to focus on the first poetic introduction of the Sermon on the Mount. When the Bible was translated from Greek into Latin, in the Latin Vulgate, the translator, a man named Cicero, titled this chapter, the Beatitudo. It is the Latin word beati, which means blessing. And we have come to transliterate that word into an English word we call the Beatitudes. And at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives us 8 Hebraic couplets, poetic structures of what it means to bless and be a blessing. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And in these 8 poetic couplets, Jesus gives us a formula for how to behave as family members. And at the root of that is that we are not just to be blessed. It's not just a quid pro quo of do these things and you will be blessed. It is a call to be a blessing by being the peacemakers, by being the pure in heart, by being the people who empathize with those who are suffering for righteousness' sake, by being the merciful, by being the humble, by being the vulnerable, by being the poor in spirit, and the ones who hunger and thirst for righteousness. By being this, we become a blessing. We are to bless each other as we have been blessed. So it comes down to the individual. It comes down to each of us as mothers and fathers, as sons and daughters, as brothers and sisters. If we are going to function as a family, and we are called to, we have not only the privileges of being in the family, but the responsibilities. And the responsibility is to bless as we have been blessed. Pastor Travis, in his notes, made a note of how Christ is at the head of that family. And he is the one who not only told us how to be a blessing, he showed us. This is how he lived his life. And he invites us to remember this. This is the communion invitation. The communion invitation is to come to the family table. Whosoever will may come. No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, no matter where you're aligned in your religious orientations, whosoever will may come. And it's an invitation to say, come and be blessed so that you can be a blessing. And so we come to the table, we come to this moment where we remember with the bread and the cup, not only what he taught, but how he lived, not only the blessings that we receive, but how we are called to be a blessing. And so today, I want to invite you to come to that table. There were more than one occasion when I was out with my friends playing or getting in trouble or hanging out in the barn or trying to figure out whether or not we liked smoking cigarettes or whatever, and we would hear this. And I would say to my friends, do you want to come? Do you want to come? I invite you to come. And many times my friends would come and they would sit at the table with my family and be treated just like family. My father or my grandfather would check their hands, make sure there was no dirt under their fingernails, check to make sure you washed behind your fingernails. It didn't matter. If you were a friend of mine or if you were family, you got treated like family at the table, but everyone was welcome. So today we want to take a moment together to take the bread and the cup. While we're not sitting at a physical table, we are coming together as family. So I would call us to communion today. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that as we come to this place and to this moment, that we would find a focus, not only of the blessing that you have given us by inviting us into this family, but the responsibility that we have to be a blessing to one another. I pray that this simple bread and this simple cup would be a reminder to us of the beauty of this remembrance and of this family. I ask this for myself and for my family and for all of us here. In Jesus' name, amen.